I knew as early.
This may be the most
I knew as early as February 2020 that I needed to do something.
I recognized that there was a systematic problem and that this was not about hydroxychloroquine, it was something larger.
Fear shut the world down, and people made a lot of money at it as they were killing us.
I was asked to speak at a freedom rally that was set up to discredit my reputation.
Whoever orchestrated this must not have the safety of this nation in mind.
Medicine and politics should be separated. These doctors were handcuffed.
The American public has awakened. We have a new civil rights movement to restore our rights, and we're going to hold them accountable.
It is a natural progression of a man of God or woman of character to see injustice, to seek it out, and then to act upon it.
Do you hear me? We will never lock down again. This is the hill we die on.
Don't miss New American Heroes with attorney Warner Mendenhall and John Davidson, Mondays on BrokenTruth. This may be the most profound scandal in human history.
This was the answer. This would have halted the pandemic.
I have lost trust in humanity, in my government, in my agencies. Trust is very hard to get back.
Something is going very wrong in this world.
The pharmacists were denying the treatment, which to me is outrageous.
Our generation let this happen. We don't know what to do.
Sorry, we were a little glitchy there. Let me see if I can get this right one more time. I was going to try to. Okay, here we go. Hi. With Broken Truth, I'm John Davidson, and today we have Dr. Sheila Furey from the Virginia Medical Freedom Alliance. Welcome, Dr. Furey.
Thank you for having me, John.
Thank you for being had. So today we're going to talk a bit about your new event coming up, which is about Constitution and medicine. Can you tell me a little bit about what this is?
Yeah, this is our second summit that is done with Feds for Freedom, and it's medical freedom in the Constitution, which is just really critical because what we saw in COVID was the overstepping or the destruction of the Constitution by lockdowns, by the closing of our churches, by the limitations of bodily autonomy and fierce mandates. And so we felt it was really important that we look at the Constitution and how it is to protect our medical freedom. And what we're specifically looking at in this conference is the overreach of government. The government is not only overreaching us in terms of medical tyranny, but also other aspects to control our lives. And so we wanted to have constitutional attorneys present, as well as other people, to look at all the different mechanisms that the government has encroached on our lives, our ability to be independent and make our own medical decisions, as well as make decisions about our movement within the country. So we're very concerned about digital ID, the real ID, other mechanisms in which the government seeks total control of our lives. And we're seeing this in real time in what's happening in Europe and in Canada. And we want to alert people in the United States as to how they can protect their freedom and how in particular they can protect their families and their children. Because the medical mandates are still alive and well in the United States, and they are dangerous, and those mandates come without informed consent. And we want to educate people about how important informed consent is and how to hold their doctors accountable.
Yeah, the last 5 years has been quite an eye opener for many of us. I know it awakened quite a few of us, but I think we have to keep fighting to awaken even more people because, like you just said, digital ID. This is the really slippery slope that leads us down to the mark of the beast kind of territory. Who all have you got coming? I'm looking at the list right now. Alex Newman, Ivan Raiklin. It looks like a pretty stellar lineup.
Absolutely. We have Christine Dolan, who's going to be interviewing Jim Zitlow, who is a pilot. And so we often talk about the military and the government employees and the mandates there, but how the pilots were absolutely targeted and what were the ramifications for those. We have Twyla Brazy, who's going to talk about HIPAA, or the lie of HIPAA, which is, my medical records are confidential, and real ID. We have Irene Mavrakakis, who's going to be talking about the nature of life, death, and how the medical establishment is hiding organ harvesting, their ability to declare you're dead before you're dead so that they can have access to your organs. Marcus Thornton and Jim Erdman from Feds for Freedom. They are the co-founders of Feds for Freedom and led the historic challenge against the government and the mandates that affected all federal and military employees, and hearing directly from them the courage that they had to stand, but to fight this and win. So we have a lot of people who have stood and they are fighting and they continue to fight. They endure a lot of losses, but we actually have some really big victories that we need to celebrate. We have Steve Crowling, who's going to talk about vaccines and the questions that parents need to know to ask their doctors. So this is really, really critical because the informed consent, or what we think is informed consent for vaccines, or the childhood vaccine schedule, is truly not informed consent. What we have is, we told you it was safe and effective. This is the mandated schedule that is given by the CDC, and this is what your child needs to be healthy. They are not telling you all of the side effects from that, and that your child, in fact, doesn't need all of those, and that you as a parent have the right to choose which of those vaccines you want to take, and with true informed consent about what is in the vaccine and how it has been tested. So we don't know that the typical doctor does not know the answers to many of those questions, and parents need to begin asking those questions.
Absolutely. We've been traveling across the country recently, and it's actually been kind of heartening as we do this, because what my family has encountered is an overwhelming thirst for more information about this type of this type of work that you're doing. People are very upset about mandates. Everybody knows someone that's vaccine injured. One minute we've got a tweet from President Trump saying that he wants answers to know what's going on, and then the next thing he's all chummy with Albert Bourla in the White House. This is obviously beyond concerning. Are we winning or are we losing?
Well, absolutely. I have concerns about what is going on in the White House. But I think where we win is on the individual by individual, family by family basis. And every week I'm getting calls from parents saying, I don't want to vaccinate my child. I want to wait. I
Right.
want to delay. This is historic. And their moms and dads are doing the research. We're having meetings. We're giving them information. We're feeding them the knowledge, not only from myself, but from pediatricians around the country who really can speak to the amount of vaccine injury. We have parents who are waking up and recognizing that their children are vaccine injured. And they're beginning the process of, how do I heal my child? And so I think this is really where it's at. These mama bears and papa bears who are saying, no, we're not going to do that. And I also think it's very true with the educational system. As our educational systems and more parents are faced with, particularly their daughters, having their private spaces invaded by boys, and their daughters are told to just suck it up, this is the way it is, the parents have really had enough. And this is why it's so critical. And that's why parents are saying, if we're going to question this, we're going to question a lot that is being, shoved down our throat by the government or the school systems. And this is what I think is truly miraculous.
I agree. It's really been a boon for homeschoolers and homeschool families like ours. Uh,
I think it's just wonderful. All right. And it's so wonderful. In fact, I don't have grandchildren yet, but my husband said, by the way, we're going to educate our grandchildren. We're committed to that already. And this is really important. And particularly because good parents don't want their children sexualized. And that's exactly what the public school system is doing. And many private schools are also very woke.
Schools are doing it. Recently, Netflix was exposed for yet another cartoon that pushes a trans ideology onto children. This is a really I'm still amazed that this is being pushed. Like, have they not read the room at Netflix and the networks and across most media? People are sick of it. They're really sick of it. You need to step away.
Absolutely. And this is really important. I just finished a chapter on gender and dysphoria in Christine Dolan's book, Urban Legends, in which I specifically look at the corruption of the psychiatric community and how in 1980 we flipped the cart over. A few psychiatrists, psychologists turned it all over and said, we're not going to identify gender or sexual perversion. It's all, psychosocial disorders, all in order to get funding from the government and to make money and to sacrifice the lives of our children. That's
Right.
what it does. It sacrifices the lives of our children through surgical, chemical means, but also cognitively. When you begin lying to your children and lying at your children at a very early age, that they have the power to change their so-called gender. No, you are either a girl or a boy. There is no changing that. And if you have discomfort with that, we need to investigate the reasons why that occurs. And some of the alarming statistics that we have are 1 in 4 girls, so 25% of girls have some sort of sexual abuse before the age of 18, and 1 in 6 boys. Those are alarming statistics. Further, when you add on top of it the rate of autism and the rate of learning disabilities in our children, you're asking children who have cognitive issues to make lifelong choices when they don't have the capacity to do that. And this is why this movement is so disturbing to me, and why, and to parents across the nation, and why it needs to stop.
Dr. Furey, your specialty is in psychiatry, correct?
I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist.
So how should parents speak to their children when children come to them with questions about, what is all this trans stuff about non-binary, cis, whatever stuff that's being pushed on you? What's a good tactic to handle
I think
that situation?
one of the most important things is to say, you were created by God, and God chose that you would be a girl or a boy, and it is a gift. So we recognize the gift of our femininity or our masculinity. And if there are difficulties with that, we try to understand what they are and understand them not from an adult perspective, but from a child's perspective. I'll give you an example. A little boy came home and said to his dad, I think maybe I want to be a girl. Dad explored this with the little boy, and he had a crush on a little girl in his kindergarten class. So he wanted to be able to play with her on the playground, but the girls played together and the boys played together. What he wanted was a friend. He didn't really want to change who he was sexually, and he couldn't do that. He wanted to play with someone. And so the father, being able to understand this, was able to support him and say, yes, it's wonderful that you want to play with Sally, all right? And there will be a time for that. It's just not at this time on the playground at school. And to teach the child to be patient and to arrange other circumstances in which girls and boys can play together, rather than just assume that this was the hallmark of gender identity disorder. Children look to one another to be friends. And what we have done, or what the psychological community's done, is sexualized all of their behavior, and it is damaging to children.
So you said in the 1980s, is that when this push to sort of normalize the trans concept began in the United States?
It actually started before that. It actually started in the 1920s and 30s. So some of the first people in transgendered work were Dr. Hirschfeld in Germany, and he was doing surgeries and hormones. And then we have Dr. Harry Benjamin here in the United States, who began using hormones. And he worked with Dr. Kinsey from the Kinsey Institute. All right. And so what we know about Dr. Kinsey is he was essentially sexually abused children. And there is documentation of him sexually abusing over 800 children. And yet the medical establishment continues to laud this man as the founder of the sexual revolution. Well, does that sexual revolution include sexualizing our children and abusing our children? All right.
Yeah, I remember hearing some of the research that he did on infants, right? Young children. That's horrific. I've tried to identify where in the history of psychology did this trans thing kind of go off the rails. One area seems to be in the DSM-4.
Mm-hmm.
From 4 to 5, they changed gender dysphoria, correct? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, so they made a move to change. You have gender dysphoria, things like that, but they wanted to normalize it. Okay, and the movement is subtle over the last 40 years, and so it went from gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria. Okay, so you have a disagreement about there's something about your identity that's wrong, to now you're just uncomfortable with it. And if we can just make you comfortable with it, then the problem is solved. So it was all about legitimizing this and having the entire medical establishment support you in whatever choice you make. So you're making children have a tremendous amount of power over their lives. You're giving them God qualities. I get to choose my gender. All right. And these are all made up terms. Okay. And Dr. Money was one of the psychologists who was at Johns Hopkins, and he did work with the Reimer twins. And one of the Reimer twins was injured. They're both boys, was injured in an accident during circumcision. And John Money said, what we need to do is raise him as a girl, because that's all that counts, is the environment in which he is. And this was in total neglect of the fact that your hormones, your sex hormones, not only influence your brain after birth, but before birth. All right. So your sex hormones are active and functioning and playing a role in brain development even before you're born, but particularly throughout development. And so you can't just flip things on and flip things off, because every cell in your body is designated XX for girls or XY for boys. And he lived in complete denial of this. Further, the work on him clearly documents that he sexually abused or had participated or had the children participate in sexual acts that were observed by up to 6 people. All right, this is criminal behavior.
Yeah.
And so if you have, John Money was actually on the committee for DSM-3 that began this change. Why John Money was ever given a position of power and listened to is all about the propaganda and the deceit, which is within the American Psychiatric Association and within the American Psychological Association.
So what do you think prohibits or inhibits prosecutors and police from arresting these psychopaths that do this to children?
Well, I think a lot of it was hidden and suppressed, and that the children and the parents in this case probably signed papers that they were being part of a study. And so if you were part of a study, was this part of the informed consent for the study? I don't know the full reasons, but both of the Reimer twins have died, tragically, one by suicide, one by overdose. And so the pain and heartache that this family underwent, I think at some point you just draw your line in the sand. But the fact that the medical establishment is covering up for them is unacceptable.
I agree. It's disgusting, and I guess my point of that question was, I would say that same inhibition is what exists today. Why can't we hold Albert Bourla responsible for Pfizer's obvious fraud? Why can't the DOJ prosecute the fraud cases for Brooke Jackson against Pfizer and their research for the fraud that they committed? What is the problem here? I mean, I know that there's a elevation of status when you're a medical doctor, and doctors certainly wield power. They can decide who goes into a 72-hour hold and things like that. But why are we so hesitant to hold doctors accountable?
I think it's really a tragedy. And the millions of people around the world that have been injured by the vaccine, the continual lie that it's safe, the continual push by many within the medical establishment to continue to support giving the COVID shots to 6-month-old babies and pregnant women. All right. So there's a level of, the level of indoctrination within the medical community is very clear. And they don't want to relinquish that. I think also one of the reasons is some of the doctors hold on is because they don't want to face their own guilt and responsibility. That when you've done something wrong, you believed a lie, all right, at what point do you wake up and what point do you own that? But I also think that our government feels that that has to, in some way, has to protect big pharma. And I think that's the biggest mistake that we can make as a nation, that our nation has been controlled by big pharma for over 100 years. And it needs to stop, because it's big pharma and the pharmaceutical industry that has destroyed the health of this
Right.
nation.
I agree. And it's been going on for half a century.
Way longer than that.
Yeah. uh, so it'll be, I think, great to have this event in a few weeks. Oh, actually, no,
In 1
on
week.
October 10th.
10th
Time is
and
flying.
11th,
Sorry.
yes.
So I'm just going to pull this up really quick again. Sorry, it covers our bases. Limitations in technology prevent me from moving us to the side. But Ivan Raiklin, Alex Newman, Twyla Brace, William Olson, Garrett O'Boyle, Matt Strickland, Dr. Sheila Furey, Dr. Irene Mavrakakis, Steve Grayling, Christine Dolan, my good buddy, Jim Erdman, Marcus Thornton, Rob Green, and Bernadette Pager. And this could be at the
At Patrick Henry College in Purcellville, Virginia. And people can get tickets at vamfa.org. So our website, so Virginia Medical Freedom Alliance, so it's vamfa.org, and you can purchase tickets now. And just know that college students, high school students with registration are free. So if parents want to come, they want to bring their high school or college age students, they're absolutely welcome. If you're a college student and you're interested in really interning or doing other things with members of the State Department, military, medical community, bring your CV, all right? And this is an opportunity that you will have to meet these speakers. This is an event where we specifically want to have those students there to answer their questions and get them connected with these people, with the speakers.
Great. And is there anything, topic-wise that they're going to cover that you're especially excited about?
The whole day. I really want to hear from William Olson and Ivan Raiklin, the constitutional lawyers, because I have a ton of questions for them. And that just how do we begin holding on to our constitutional freedoms and challenging in our school boards, our city councils, our in state government. I think when we begin to empower the people in little ways to say, that's unconstitutional, they can't do that. What do we want to do? How do we mobilize people and groups of people to speak and stand together? And I think this is a wonderful part about these events, is it allows really the common person to network across the state and really across the country with experts so that they can empower their families and communities.
Yeah, that's the positive. I was speaking with an attorney last night, and as frustrating as the last 5 years have been, it's allowed us to find each other, to connect with, patriots, and to build this network so that hopefully if something like this gets pulled again, we can shut it down before it gets too far.
Absolutely. Never again.
Yeah, this has been a real eye-opener as far as how I thought about my country, and a lot of the people within it. It's very shocking. I spoke to someone on our travels last week, and he just said, "What everything you're saying, it's like a breath of fresh air. Everybody I talk to just ghosts me when I say these things." I was like, "Well, you need to get with better people, I guess."
Absolutely. And the network that we have built here in Virginia, and it's not just Virginia, because we're networking with these medical freedom groups across the nation. And it's really a wonderful thing to see and know and experience. And that we're not saying this is my territory, we're not sharing. That what we're doing is sharing, okay, we've got legislation, here's the legislation, draft it for your state, You have a speaker, an expert on this area. Here, we'll share that information. This is the wonderful part about this movement. And it really allows this, group of experts is really internationally acclaimed. And that's why this event is going to be so important. You've got Christine Dolan, who not only has international expertise in human trafficking, but she's applying that knowledge base to the medical industrial complex and speaking about medical trafficking. All right. This is, the depth and breadth of each of these speakers is unmatched. And that's why it's so important for people to come.
Oh, and I see Jim Zeitler there
Yes.
too. He was a pilot. I think I met him in Denver last year. Yeah, this looks like it should be a really, really great event. And it doesn't look too rushed. We held an event over the summer, and I don't know how we did it. We crammed in about 200,000 people in about 45 minutes. That's how it felt. I'm not. Don't quote me on those numbers though. But
we really want people to have the opportunity to ask questions and to network and, spend time away from a speaker, because as you have those breaks, it allows you to reflect and that to ponder additional questions. So that, and most of these speakers are going to be there all of both days. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity to interact with them.
Yeah, I find at the events, it is more fun to make friends with the people that are there, to make friends with the speakers. It is a great opportunity to just rub elbows with some of the people that you see online. You see them in IRL, they say, in real life.
Yes.
And it is great. I've made some amazing friends going to these events because, there's the event and then there's, okay, people go off to dinner or to lunch or whatever. And that's where the magic happens, in my opinion.
And absolutely. And I think the people that I meet, all right, it really, at all the events that I've gone to, I've spoken at, it's just sitting next to somebody and finding out what you have in common. And it's really been refreshing. And I really consider those God moments because as you build your own network, somebody will say, hey, I need somebody in this county or in this state. And I go through the Rolodex kind of thing and say, what? Got somebody. Okay. Yeah. And that's the wonder of that. And for people who feel so disconnected, this is a wonderful opportunity for them. And I think it's especially wonderful for the students because the students need to hear that the propaganda that they're hearing in most of their schools is just propaganda. And that there is a strong network of other college students and young adults who are really seeking the truth, and they're basing their decisions with really a solid foundation, and to be able to meet those other students and network with them.
I think it's great. And, part of that networking means you can help educate each other, sharpen each other's swords, because the people that come to these events will then later go and speak at city council meetings, Board of Education meetings, and they are the ones that will carry that torch farther. So you really are being a light in the world, and I'm very grateful for you and all our friends that do this work. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the event or anything?
I think that this is our time, and we can no longer sit on the sidelines. And this is particularly true in Virginia. We have an election on November 4th. It could be, if certain things happen, it will be a radical change to the fabric of Virginia. And we cannot let that happen. We have one of the gubernatorial candidates, Abigail Spanberger, wants to have abortion protected throughout pregnancy and after birth. She wants no parental consent. She also wants full medical assistance in dying, and that, the limited informed consent, limited input from the family. What they're saying to elderly or sick people is, you are a burden to your family or a burden to society. This is wrong. And we, as concerned citizens, must stand. Our churches must stand. We must speak out about this. We must educate, because really right now, this is a crucial moment in the state of Virginia, and we cannot let it become under the tyranny, absolute tyranny, that would happen if she's elected.
Agreed. When they show you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
Someone that wants to kill born children, no. I can't be a leader. They're only going to lead you over the cliff.
Correct. Right.
Well, Dr. Furey, thank you so much for taking time to meet with me today. Just once again, it's a medical freedom in the Constitution, protecting yourself from government overreach at Patrick Henry College in Purcellville, Virginia. And that's going to be on October 10th and 11th. And I'm going to put this on the screen one more time, just in case somebody needs it. You can go to vamfa.org to get tickets right now. You better hurry, because they're going to sell out.
They are.
So thank you so much, Dr. Furey. I'm sure we're going to have you back on.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.